Hey guys, it's me, Sonia. So I'm up once again, not going to sleep, not really writing, procrastinating, and I decided that I wanted to make a video. This video in particular is going to be a story time. I haven't done a story time in a while. Actually, I don't know if I've ever done a story time. Nope, I have. I just don't do them a lot. Anywho, so the story time is going to be about the time I fell in love with a Haitian. um, so yeah, here goes. Whew. Oh well, I hadn't thought about this in a while. Um, okay, so the year was 2015. Um, 2015 was a very busy year for me. I kind of started off the year by breaking up with my boyfriend of a year. We were together for literally 12 months. And I broke up with him because he wanted to marry me. Like, who does that? Like, most people when they're ready to get married, they stay with the person. But I broke up with him mainly because he was really I don't want to say he was pushy. He wasn't pushy compared to my husband. He wasn't pushy. But he's just kind of like I think I see a future with us, but in order for us to get married, you have to get a certain amount of degrees. And I mean, considering his status, like he was working on his PhD and I was working on my bachelor's degree. Like we were in different places, and that was after I graduated massage school. So I already had my associate's degree, and I was at a 4-year college. And he was like, I think I can see us having a future, blah 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 blah, but I need you to graduate, and then I need you to go for your master's, and then I also want you to get a PhD. And I was like, I don't really feel like I need that much information. I don't need to know all that. And he's like, well, I think education is, insert whatever strong feelings towards it. And I said, yeah, I'm not really feeling it. So we broke up. Yeah, so I broke up with him. Um, was that a good idea? I don't know. But that was the start of 2015. Next were a couple of failed relationships. I had a best friend who was a guy, and he always said like if we were ever single at the same time that we should try to be together. And I met him when I was 15, so I had a little bit of trust in him. Over the years we were like pen pals. We'd write each other back and forth about updates, talk about our vision boards together, things of that sort. But nothing really came of it. So when he said we should be together, I jumped at it. I was like, yeah, because, he wouldn't force me to get an education before we got married. Um, whatever. It didn't work out. It was a fail. It was a terrible fail. Now I might do a story time on that, but it was a terrible fail. Then I was set up with by a friend of my mother's, and me and that guy got engaged. I have a story time for that one too. We got engaged, and the engagement fell through after I had purchased my dress, after I had put down, well, after I had paid, well, not even me, after my grandfather had paid for the venue that was non-refundable. After we sent out the save the dates and the invitations. Um, I'm still a little upset. I've been married for almost 4 years, and I'm still upset about all that money I wasted on that engagement. That I'm just mad about it. That's another story time. Anyway, so that was the beginning in the middle of 2015. So then after my engagement fell through, I said, you know what? I'm gonna stop trying to commit to people. I wanted to commit to my boyfriend in 2014, but he wanted me to do all these things academically before we can be together. And I was like, what? um, I felt like we should be together regardless. And since I'm already in school, like, of course I'm going to finish, but that shouldn't be what decides whether or not we're going to stay together, but whatever. So I got to the point where I was like, you know what? I'm going to stop trying to commit to people. Like, because right after the guy that I was going to be with, I jumped into a semi relationship with my friend of a long time, and that fell through. And then I jumped into another semi relationship, and I got engaged. Like it was really quick. It was like I just kept trying to commit myself. Like I was so disappointed with the 2014 not really working out how I wanted to. Like, yeah, he was going to marry me, but he had, you know, um, a prerequisite before engagement. So I mean, like that's stupid. That's like saying, yeah, I'll marry you, but you got to do this. Like, no. So because of that situation, I just started jumping around trying to commit to people. Like I was just mad. I was just jumping around. So I got to a point where I was just like, you know what? I'm not gonna keep trying to commit to people. I'm gonna be wild. Now, mind you, I've been a church girl all of my life. Even when I wasn't saved necessarily, I was a church girl. Like I was still going to Sunday service. I was still going to what's it called? God, I can't think of it right now. I was still going to Sunday school and then going to regular church service, like getting up at 7 a.m. to stay there until what 2 p.m. at church. Like that was me. And I was still in the choir and I was still going to Bible study even before I got saved. Like I was just going because that's what I had to do. So like I've been in the church all my life. So when I'm saying I'm just gonna be wild, it was like I didn't even know what I was trying to say. Like I couldn't even fathom what I would go through trying to be wild. I said, all these people are having so much fun. They're sending it up. They're being heathens, and God's not striking them down. Nothing's happening to them. Like, I want to be wild. I don't, because I was always taught, like, in church, you're supposed to get married before you do anything, And I was taught, you have to be a lady, you have to be modest, you have to do this. Like, I would be the person going to the pool trying to cover up because I don't want, anyone to see my goods. Like I've always had big breasts, always. Now I also had a big belly, but I always had big breasts, and I was the one trying to cover up. Like, oh, I don't want anybody to, I don't want anybody to see me. I was always trying to cover up my legs and stuff. It's like you're at a pool, but I was like super modest. Like, oh, I don't want anybody to see me. But yeah, that's how just how it was. I was raised to be modest. Um, and I mean, like, honestly, like, even in high school, people were like, Sonny, why you act so old? Like, I would wear like suit skirts. Um, uh, you know how most suits have like either pants or skirts to them for women. I would always wear skirts, and they would be long skirts. Like I'm talking below my knee skirts. Like people like, why do you dress like an old lady? It's just like I'm trying to be modest. I'm trying to be modest. Now, I will say in middle school, I wore a short skirt, but I had a uniform. And for whatever reason, it just wouldn't, it wouldn't sit right unless I had it high. So, of course, I had a short skirt then, but I also had stockings and I had leggings and I tried to make sure I was covered. I tried to make sure I didn't have no shape or anything, but that's a whole nother story. Anyway, so 2015, back to 2015, mid 2015, I said I'm gonna be wild. All these people are out here having fun and doing this, and God's not striking them down, and nothing's happening to them, and it's like I want to live a little because I thought my modesty was not living. That's what I thought. Like my modesty, I'm not living because everybody else is having fun. Like I miss the high school years where people were, having sex rampant, everywhere, anywhere, in school, in church, like just having sex rampant. I missed that time. I missed, going to different parties and drinking underage. I missed doing drugs underage. Like I just felt like I had missed out. Like people would invite me places and I'd be like, "Oh, I'm sorry, I have Bible study. Oh, I'm sorry, I have women's conference. Oh, I'm sorry, I have marriage counseling," even though I wasn't getting married anytime soon. "Oh, I'm sorry, I have to do all this stuff with the church. Oh, I'm sorry, I have to volunteer here. Oh, I'm sorry, I have to do that." Like I felt like I wasn't living. So I decided mid 2015, I'm gonna be wild. Everybody else is being wild. They're having fun. I'm not having fun. I'm missing out. I want to see what the world is like. And boy, did I see what the world is like. So, um, where do I start? Uh, where do I start? Where do I start? Okay, let's go to how I met this Haitian. Okay, so I'm living with a guy who is not my husband. Don't ask me how I end up living with this guy. I don't want to share that story. That's another story time that I'm not really looking forward to sharing with you guys. But I'm living with this guy, and I'm not really feeling him. Like, I don't like him. And I don't think he necessarily likes me, but we're living in the same place. That's just how it was. That's it. Like, it was kind of like, hey, how are you? Leave me alone now. Like, it's just kind of that thing. It's not even like we were, I don't want to say we weren't shacking up, because I told you guys I was being wild, or what I considered wild. Um, so, we were physical, but not a lot. It was like literally, I can count how many times we were physical. It was nothing. Um, Anywho, so I was living with this guy. Nothing was really happening. We didn't have any. It wasn't like a real friendship. It wasn't necessarily sexual tension. There was just. I mean, he was attractive. He was very attractive. Like I have, like I deleted my external hard drive not too long ago, and I had somebody restore it. And he brought back so many pictures that I had deleted. Like, it's like, wow, I didn't even know that I had this. I have some pictures of this dude, and I was looking at him, and I was like, man, he really was attractive. He just irritated me, so I couldn't see it. But yeah, he really was attractive. But anyway, so I'm living with this guy, and he's not really doing anything for me. Not emotionally, not physically. He's there. I'm there. It was just that. And I was bored. I was like, okay, what am I doing with life? Like, I mentioned a lot of times on this channel, and I know it's a little bit repetitive, but I was working a lot of jobs because I was saving up to open my own spa. So I was living with this guy, and his where he lived was kind of like in the middle of where I worked. So I had four jobs. None of them were near each other. Like I literally had a job that was an hour away from where I was staying. Um, and I would have to drive past where I was staying, all the way across. Like I was driving a lot. Like let's just say I was driving a lot. Anyway, um, so I had all these jobs trying to save money to open my own spa. So I would literally do any and everything to get away from this dude because we weren't friends, we weren't anything. We were just together. Not even like boyfriend and girlfriend. We were just living together, literally. Like not interested in each other. Like I would walk around naked, he walk around naked. It's just kind of like okay, whatever, you know. But anyway, so I would literally do almost anything to get away from him. So I went on this dating site, one of my favorite pastimes when I became wild. And I just said, you know what, I think I want to go out today. And I would just find some random person and be like, hey, you want to go out? And they'd be like, yeah, sure, let's go. Or, I would be extra flirty and then somebody would ask me out or something like that. I usually didn't make the first move because I'm a lady. Even in my wild days, I was a lady. Anyway, so I meet this guy and he's nice. He's kind of cute. He was an engineer and I was excited because he was the first engineer that I ever dated. So I was like, oh, that's cool. Let's go out. Let's hang out. And I mean, he was okay. He's okay. And let's say a week later, I meet this other guy, and he's not an engineer. And I'm like, oh, you know. But he had a decent job, and he was decent looking. He wasn't like super duper attractive. Like when I initially saw him, I wasn't in love. It was just kind of like, oh, he's decent. He's not ugly. He's not normally my type, but he's fine. So the first time we scheduled to go out, I don't know what excuse I gave him, but we didn't go out. Um, the second time, the first guy that I met, um, he called me and we went out. And so the second guy called me and he's like, "Oh, what are you doing?" I was like, "Oh, well, I'm out on a date." And he's like, "Oh, well, you can just stop by afterwards." And because I was being wild, I was like, "Yeah, I don't care what time it is. I'll stop by." Um, don't do that. That's dumb. But I went to his apartment after my date, and we met up, and he was cooking, and I was like, "Oh, what are you cooking?" And he showed me what he's cooking, and he's like, "Oh, you want some?" And I was like, "Oh, well, I just ate." He's like, "No, try it." and I tried it and it was delicious. So I grabbed me a bowl, like I ate the whole bowl. I asked for seconds. I was like, "Oh snap, you can cook? Okay." Um, and after we ate, we are just sitting on his couch talking. Mind you, I just met this dude. It wasn't like we knew each other beforehand. Like literally the same day that I ended up at his house was the same day that I met him. Like I barely could remember his name. It just so happens that I was rummaging through his stuff because that's what I do, or that's what I did. I was rummaging through his stuff, but I didn't know his last name. Like on his profile, he didn't have his last name. He had a like a username, and it just so happened that he told me his first name, but I didn't know his last name. So I was rummaging through his stuff because I felt weird not knowing his last name. So I found out his last name. So by the end of the day, I knew his first and his last name, but it's just kind of like, don't do that. That's dumb. um, but so yeah, we're talking on his couch, and he's just really giving me these intense looks. Like he's looking me dead in my face. Like I don't even know if he's blinking. So I'm kind of awkwardly looking away, like okay, or and I would just be talking about like I don't think I was talking about anything, but I was just giggling like so happy to get away from this guy that I was living with. I was just enjoying my time. But he was just staring me down. I'm like, dude, what do you want? And he doesn't say anything. I'm like, come on, dude. Like, what do you want? And I don't know how to say this. Would it be old to say he put the moves on me? Would that be old? I don't know how else to say it. Um, I forgot to also mention this detail. So when I got there to his apartment, of course he had the food cooking, but he had also had the lights out and he had candles lit. And after I ate, because I like after I had his food and it was delicious, um, we went to the couch, right? So he has the candles lit. We're in the dark. I just ate. You know, when you eat, you get a little tired, but whatever. He had some music playing. I'm like, okay, this is different. And mind you, I told you I've been a church girl, so I'm not used to I'm not used to any of this. So I'm like, okay, this is odd conversation decor, but it's fine. So we're talking. And I tell you, like, he's looking at me. I'm like, what do you want? Like, why are you looking at me like that? He just keeps looking at me. He doesn't answer me. So he, like I said, he put the moves on me. I don't know how else to say it. He put the moves on me. He's just like in my everything. And I don't know how it happened because I was like mid speaking to him, and all of a sudden he's everywhere. And so yeah, that was unexpected. I was wearing boots at the time. I know it was winter time, or it wasn't winter. It was probably fall, early fall, or something like that. Had on boots. My boots came off. Had on socks. My socks came off, and he began attempting to massage my feet. I wasn't ready. I wasn't ready. I think what was I? I was like what? That was 20, 23, 22, 23, maybe even 24. No, I had to be 23. I had to be. I don't know. I was around that age. I wasn't ready. I was not. I was not. A man massaging my feet in dim lighting with candles. He just fed me like I wasn't ready. I wasn't ready. Um okay, so then after he massaged my feet, he was doing that thing where he was like staring into my soul and whatnot. And then next thing you know, he's everywhere again. I'm like, hold on, wait. How did this happen? We were just talking. Like, why? What? And so, things happened. I'm just gonna leave that part like that. So over the next few days, he's calling me, checking on me, seeing how I am. And I'm like, oh, I'm fine. And he's like, so when can I see you again? And I'm like, I don't know. Once again, I was being wild and I was trying not to get committed. So I went on dates with other people, but he keeps checking in on me, like, so when are we gonna go out? things of that sort. And I was like, oh, well, I work at this time and I get off at this time. He's like, oh, well, I'll be working then. And I forgot to mention he has a daughter. So he's like, oh, well, I have my daughter this weekend. We can't do that. Or, you know, um, whatever, whatever. And he works like a really odd hours. So it just seemed like whenever I was off of work, he was working. Whenever he was working, I was and whenever he was off, I was working. And then the only time that we both were off and like free, it was nighttime or like at really weird times, like at 2 p.m. in the middle of the day. Like what? Let's just say like all the good times that we had, um, was in the evening. So it's kind of like that's the only time we can meet up because I'm working and you're working and you have a kid and so yeah. Um, Finally, we do set up another date, but of course, it's at his home because I got off at 10 p.m. and he got off at 9. And so that's the only time we had. The only time we had. I remember one time we did schedule to go bowling because there's a 24-hour bowling alley. But I told him like I don't even bowl. Like I hate bowling and I'm tired. I've been working a 12-hour shift. Like I just want to go to sleep. And he's like, "Oh, you can take a nap at my apartment." I was wild. And I was like, I'm not trying to commit. I'm gonna whatever. He's like, "Oh, you can take a nap at my apartment." And he was like, "I promise I won't try anything." I was like, "Okay, fine." So I go to his apartment, and of course, he just so happens to be cooking. Like I don't know if this is how this guy seduces people or if he legit just cooks every day, but he was cooking. He fed me. I was full. I was sleepy from eating, and I went to sleep. And I woke up, and whatever. Um, I can't remember. Oh, I do remember. Okay, I woke up and he wasn't at his apartment. And I was like, "Oh, when you left?" And he's like, "Yeah, I just ran to the store to do whatever, whatever." And I was like, oh, "Okay, well, I guess I better go home." And he's like, "You know what time it is?" And I was like, "No, what time is it?" He's like, "Oh, it's like 2 a.m." I was like, oh no," because I told you I got off at 10:30 or something like that. I used to work really late. I used to go into work early and I work really late. And usually, whenever I closed, I would make the most tips. So, um, yeah, I stayed really late. He's like, "Oh, it's like 2 a.m. or something like that." And I was like, "So why are you out getting groceries?" And in our area, there are a lot of 24-hour grocery stores. So he went to go get groceries at 2 a.m. Um, so he comes back with his groceries. He puts them up and stuff, and he's like, "Well, you might as well just stay here." And I'm like, "No, I can't stay here. I don't even know you like that." He's like, "Well, you've been sleeping here. Like, you might as well just stay here." And I'm like, "This seems like a trap." But I'm like, "Okay, it is 2 a.m. Like, I would be foolish to leave here at 2 a.m. and try to get back." Mind you, where he lived was about 45 minutes away from where the guy was staying that I was staying with. So to leave there at 2 a.m., I would get back to the guy's place around 3 a.m. And then also at that time, I was working a job as a teacher. I mentioned that in a couple of videos. I used to wake up at 5 a.m. every morning to be at work at 7 a.m. So every morning at 5 a.m., mind you, I'm at this guy's house at 2 a.m. So if I were to get in the car and drive, I would be driving for almost an hour to get back to the guy's place where I was staying, only to have to wake up in 2 more hours. So it didn't make sense for me to do that. I might as well just stay at the guy's place and sleep. So I did. But because the guy knew I was real rested, we didn't necessarily sleep. And I'm gonna leave it there. I'm gonna leave that there. Um, so fast forward. over the next few months, me and the guy get close. We get close. So like I'm going there like 3 or 4 times a week. Every time he's cooking, most of the time he has candles lit. Most of the time we stop talking at a certain point, and I'm just gonna leave it there. I don't want to get dirty on this channel. Like this isn't one of those channels. But just let's just say I was being wild, and I was appreciating his cooking, showing him my appreciation. Um, so yeah, a few months go by, and it's just kind of like, okay, so we're not dating, are we? And he's like, no. I'm like, okay. After all, we never went out outside of his apartment, so we couldn't be dating. But he just checked up on me a lot. Like he was always calling me, seeing how I'm doing, calling me at work, seeing how I'm doing at work, asked me if I need anything. He was just like extra sweet for no reason. And he was always feeding me. Like I'm telling you, like people say food is the way to a man's heart, but like this dude was feeding me, and I would be like, I would be so happy because I would literally spend all day at work, like literally from 5 a.m. to like 10:30. I would be working. I would usually have maybe like a 2 hour break, but for the most part, and even in that 2 hour break, I was usually driving from one job to another job because I was trying to save money to open my spa. Like I was doing a lot. So most of the time, I would just visit the guy a couple times a week, and half of the time I was asleep, like legit, I was asleep, like I was knocked out. Because I told you I would work late, I would wake up early. So when I saw him, I'd be like, hey, and, like I would go to sleep. So I was trying to figure out like what are we? He's like, we're not dating, are we? He's like, no. So I was like, okay, fine. Um, and then, as I'm being nosy, because I like, even though I was a wild child, I'm still a black person. So I couldn't just be going to people's homes, just like not knowing who they are. So, of course, I told you the first night, I figured out his last name. And, I also figured out where he worked. And, I also asked him about some things about himself. Like, I wasn't super stupid. I was just naive and inexperienced. And so I found out that he knew how to farm. Like he knew how to grow fruits and vegetables. Because of course he's from Haiti. They have farms there. They don't have all the things that we have here. Like pretty much everything here you get from the grocery store. You need some fruits and vegetables, you go to the grocery store. You need some meat, you go to the grocery store. You don't go to the farm. And I mean, some people here will grow their own foods, and some people may even have chicken coops in their backyard or something, but it's rare. It's rare unless you have like a lot of land. Like if you have acres of land, then you have farms. But for most people, you just go to the store. So he's told me that he farms, and I'm like, what? Um, just a backstory. I grew up always wanting to marry somebody who could farm because I didn't know how. I thought it would be amazing to be able to go in my backyard and pick up fruits and vegetables, eat it fresh. I thought it would be great to, have chickens that laid eggs every morning. I just thought that was amazing. I just didn't know how to do it personally, and I didn't necessarily want to learn how to do it. I just said, when I get older, I want to marry a guy who knows how to do this. And this guy was telling me that he could do that, and he had done that. And I was like, what? So, so you know how to grow stuff? What you know how to defeather a chicken? What you know how to what you know how to do that? And I already knew that he knew how to cook. Like he can cook stuff from scratch. I was like, who is this guy? Um, and then even though we were acting like heathens, he knew the Bible, and I'm like, what? I'm like, so you know the Bible, you know how to cook, and you know how to farm? Like, what is this? And then I told you guys he had a daughter, so he had a super sensitive side. He was always sweet with her. Like sometimes she'd call him on the phone, and he would be so sweet with her and patient with her. And every now and then he would talk about her and say how smart she was and how energetic she was, and just tell little stories about her. And I was like, oh my goodness, he would be a perfect father. Like I would, well, father for our kids, our imaginary kids, and and so I was just going, 100 miles an hour, just like head over heels for this guy. And then one day, when I'm staying there late, well, when I'm planning to spend the night, um, he tells me like, it's been fun, being with you and all this stuff. I'll tell you what actually brought up this conversation. So, he asked me on Facebook, and I don't, the guys that I was dating, even when I was, being treated well by him, I would never add them on social media. Like, first off, I didn't really use social media, so there'd be no point. But also, I didn't add them on social media because I actually had people that I loved and liked on social media. So I didn't really add them. But when I'm doing my digging on him, I just so happen to look him up. So now he's in my suggested friends thing. So somehow I ended up adding him on Facebook. And I was like, oh goodness, did I do the right thing? Because now he knows all my business. Like, I mean, he knew all my business. He knew where I worked. He knew my name. He knew where I lived. He knew a little bit of stuff, but he didn't know like everything. Um, and that was my old Facebook where I actually had stuff from like high school on there, as well as college. Um, but my new Facebook doesn't have any of that stuff, so I added whatever. But um, so I add him on Facebook, and I'm looking at all these pictures of him and his daughter, and I'm like, oh, that's so cute, whatever, whatever. I'm looking at pictures of him and his baby mama, and I'm just being a hater. And then I see a recent picture of him out on a date with somebody, and I'm like, hmm, you know, like I said before, I was at his house multiple times a week. Like I would be there, almost every other day. Sometimes I would just stop by to say hi. Sometimes I would stop by to eat. Sometimes I would stop by to enjoy him. And it was just a surprise. I'm like, oh, I knew he was dating people, but I didn't know he was putting them on social media dating him. Like his family is on there. Like so yeah. I went to his house one day, and I kind of questioned him about this. I was like, "Oh, so you got a girlfriend now?" And he was like, "What do you mean?" I was like, "I saw a girl on Facebook. She's pretty. Like, you have a girlfriend?" And he's like, "Oh, well, we're just kind of blah 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 blah." And I'm like, "Okay, so I understand that we're not dating, but are you dating her? Like, are you serious? Like, you have family on there talking about, your future with this girl. Like, are you dating her? Like, does your daughter know her?" And he's like, well, that's not really any of your business or anything like that. I'm like, okay, you're right, because I'm not your girlfriend and we're not really dating. So whatever, whatever. So this is when he sits me down and he's just kind of like, it's been fun. He's like, it's been fun. I like your company. You're a little quirky, but for the most part, you're good company. Blah 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 blah. And basically, he just says it outright. He's like, you know, um, I would never marry somebody that's more than 5 years younger than me. And so, as much as I like you, I could never marry you. And I'm like, what? Now, I didn't even say anything about us being together like that, but he just could tell because the dude was cooking for me. What do you think I was thinking? Like I told you guys, like in the beginning of the year, I was committing to almost anybody. Like after my breakup, I was like, I'm not spending another year with somebody who's not going to marry me because of whatever reason they have. And first off, the guy from 2014, I never asked him to marry me. Like, I wasn't even thinking about marriage. He was thinking about marriage. He just wanted to make sure that I had my education together before we got married. So the thing wasn't about I was forcing him to marry me. But as soon as we broke up, that became everything. Like I was like, I'm committing to everybody. So when this guy that I really like told me that he would never marry somebody more than 5 years younger than him, I was like, what? I'm like my heart. like I never said anything about marriage to him. And even though I mentioned the girl on his Facebook, I wasn't like I wasn't being dramatic. I wasn't shaking my I wasn't like and you know and you ain't nothing and you like I wasn't doing that because I wasn't his girlfriend. And we hadn't been out on an official date. So I told you I was in my wild phase. Like I didn't care. And plus I told you I was also dating other people. So even though I really, really, really like I told you this is my story about how I fell in love with a Haitian. I loved him. Even though I loved him, I was still dating other people because I was trying not to get emotionally involved because half of my year I was trying to commit to people who weren't committed to me. So when he said that, I was just kind of like, what? And he's like, well, we can still hang out, we can still fool around and stuff like that. And I'm like, yeah, we can do that. Like, cause I mean, he made me happy. Like, and he made me happy. I'm just gonna say that I was exhausted from working, and being around him made me happy. But he's just like, just we could never be married. And I guess I could have pursued it further. After all, I was prettier than the girl that he put on Facebook, but whatever. And I think I would have been a great stepmom. But I didn't pursue it much further. Like a few weeks after that conversation, he was just like, "So why don't you come around anymore?" I was like, I'm just so busy with work." And he's like, "Yeah, okay." And at that time, I found a location for my spa, and so I really was busy, but my heart was hurt also, so I just didn't pursue it too much. So I stopped calling him, and he would just be texting me like, "Hey, how are you? You good? When am I gonna see you again?" It's like, I don't know. And I finally moved. I moved. I moved out of the guy's house that I was staying at, even though I wasn't really staying there. Like I was staying there a little bit, but for the most part, I was with this other guy. Um, And I know that sounds really bad, but I'm telling you guys, I went through a 3 month wild girl phase. It was only 3 months. 3 months out of my whole life. 3 months. So yeah. So the guys like texted me like, "Oh, so when are we gonna hook up again? When am I gonna see you again? We should go out. I want to take you on a real date this time." And I'm just like, mm. Because my heart is hurt. Like, if we're not getting married, like, what do I want with you? And I know, sure, we didn't have anything set in stone, like, oh, we're dating, but I didn't know you would be putting people on your Facebook. Like, if I never saw her, we would never have to talk about it. But the fact that I saw her, and that your family members saw her, like real blood family members saw her on your Facebook, so that must mean something. She must be a girlfriend, somebody that you want your family to ask questions about. Anyway, my heart is hurt. So, over the next few months, he would text me. I might see him maybe once a month, and it will be fabulous when I saw him. Like, it would be fabulous. It would be fabulous. Fabulous. First off, let me just tell you one thing about this dude. Always, always going to the gym. Always going to the gym. His body was fabulous. Fabulous. I'm not exaggerating. It was fabulous. Um, he had this beautiful, beautiful, beautiful dark skin. Like, um, I don't know how to. Who can I tell you that he looks like? Um, I don't know. Think of somebody from Sudan, like the really deep, rich, dark skin. Like you guys don't know it, but I love me some dark skin. Like I cannot. Like even if somebody's like, hey, I have a therapy client, and can you be their massage therapist? If they have really rich dark skin, I have to say no, because I won't be able to do my job. I won't be able to focus. Like I love me some dark skin. Um, anyway, he had this really rich, rich dark skin, and he had these muscles. And when I say he had muscles, I think I weighed 150. He literally could just throw me up in the air. Like he was strong. He was strong. He had this beautiful dark skin. He had these muscles. And he could cook. and he could farm, and he was a great dad. He was romantic. Always had candles. Always had the music playing. Always had the food. He even gave me chocolate. I'm a sucker for chocolate. Like, and he massaged my feet. Let me tell you about this man. And he okay, so I don't know if I can express to you what I want to tell you without being dirty on this video, and I'm not trying to go there, but this man. I sometimes think like if he could just talk to my husband about some things. Lord, I fell in love with a Haitian. That's my story. I can't tell you anymore because I'll tell you one thing. I'll tell you one last thing. Just one last thing, just to finish this video. Um, so the week before I got married to my husband. Was it the week before? It might have been the week after. No, it was the week before. The week before I got married to my husband, he texted me. He texted me. He didn't know that I was engaged. He didn't know I was getting married. The week before I got married to my husband, he texted me. You don't know. You just don't know. I may have not been married if I had responded. I may not have been married out. Anyway, I really want to tell you what I need to tell you, but I can't. I can't tell you that because my husband may see this video, and I can't risk that. Anywho, that's my story of how I fell in love with a Haitian. Mhm. Bye, guys.